This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Hi, I'm Seth.
And I'm Patrick. Chapter 14, Customs of Mayene. And our symbol is the wolf.
It's a parent chapter. And his interaction with Mayene.
Perrin shook his head as the door closed behind Matt. Matt would as soon hit himself on the head with a hammer as go back to the Two Rivers. Not unless he must. Perrin wished there was some way he could avoid going home too, but there was no way. It was a fact as hard as iron, and less forgiving. The difference between Matt and himself was that he was willing to accept that, even when he did not want to. Easing his shirt off made him grunt, careful as he could be. A large bruise, already faded to browns and yellows, stained his entire left shoulder. A trolloc had slipped past his axe, and only Fail's quick work with the knife had kept it from being more than it was. The shoulder made washing painful, but at least there was no worry about cold water and tear. He was packed and ready. Only a change of clothes for the morning remaining out of his saddlebags. As soon as the sun rose, he would go find Loyal. No point in bothering the Ogier tonight. He was probably already abed, where Perrin meant to be shortly. Fail was the only problem he had not figured out how to deal with. Even staying in Tyr would be better for her than going with him. The door opened, surprising him. Perfume wafted into him as soon as the door cracked. It made him think of climbing flowers on a hot summer night. A tantalizing scent. Not heavy, not to anyone but him. But nothing Fail would wear. Still, he was even more surprised when Mayene stepped into his room.
So I like that callback to when Rand saw Perrin and Fail fighting, and he saw her with her knives out, protecting his back. And he says, well, that was the only thing that kept me from getting really badly injured. And it shows how well they do actually work together in sort of a tough situation, is she has his back in a fight. I really like this turn of phrase for describing Mayene, climbing flowers on a hot summer night.
The way she smells.
Yes, but that, like, she's clingy and sexy and hot on a summer night. You know, that scent really sort of is her description of this clingy hot thing. Perrin is certainly attracted to Mayene here.
I think everyone is.
Right. And there's a couple of times where he's like deliberately just trying to look away because he's like, oof,
yeah,
that's tempting. In particular, I think she crosses her arms beneath her breasts and he immediately looks away because she's already got a bunch of cleavage showing, and that's like basically a push-up bra.
Yeah, I don't really know what her intent here is. I mean, we can assume she's here to seduce Perrin, but nothing ever really pans out here.
I don't think she shows up to seduce him. I think she actually is just she starts off trying to pass a message.
Yeah.
She's like, messenger boy, go tell your friend that I'm leaving. And he's like, no.
Go get a messenger. I'm not running errands for you. I don't even like you.
And so she has this reaction of like, oh, really? And like that denial, I think, is what really gets her attention for the first time.
Just asked where he's going, why. He says to the Two Rivers.
You will not do as I ask? She asked incredulously. No, haven't you been listening to me? She tossed her head again, but there was a difference this time, though. He could not have said what. Studying him thoughtfully, she murmured half to herself, such striking eyes.
She's amused or something.
I think that's the first time she actually looks at him and goes, here's someone with power. Here's someone who's attractive. He's got good eyes. And he said no to me, which I want it because I can't have it. And so I think from that sentence on, her strategy changes from just basically sending Perrin to send a message to wanting him for herself.
Yeah.
And then Fail comes in and like that only enforces the whole thing.
They just ignore each other. Fail and Mayene just ignore each other in the room. And Fail doesn't even bring it up until later when she's being mad at Perrin. Perrin, I went into the city looking for you and I heard a rumor. And she says, oh, I guess you already heard. As Maylene's leaving.
Maylene's like, I get what I want.
She does say that. I always get what I want.
I'm not here to make friends. And there's a couple of times again when like she gives a little shrug and Perrin's like, whoa, okay, looking away. That bounced. So there's just a couple of those things all throughout. But it's like it's part of the chapter. It's like, it's one of those things like Elaine's nose is always up in the air. Yeah, and Berlane's always showing off the cleavage. Even though he never says it in there, people's reactions more than anything else
Sure.
show it off.
Fail says, like, I see you've heard the rumor. Perrin says, yes. She's like, by the time you get there, the White Cloaks will probably be gone. He's like, not if I leave by the ways.
Yeah, and he makes the point that obviously the Yellow Eyes make it not just a rumor. They're actually looking for him.
Oh, right,
and they know who he is because they have his name.
Mm-hmm.
But she makes a good point that, like, the rumors took weeks to get here. And we know that his family's probably already dead. Even if he were to teleport Gateway there, it wouldn't do any good. He'd still be too late. And so she actually seems to know a fair amount about the ways, enough to know that it's a terrible, terrible idea to do it. But she doesn't seem to know that Perrin's already gone through.
No. And why would she? This is the first time he mentions it.
No questions. I just thought they were past the point of, like, not telling stuff to her about what they did. I feel like
I don't know. I don't think it's a willful... I don't think Perrin's willfully withholding information. What have they known each other for, like, 6 weeks?
I guess, yeah. He hasn't really told her all the stories of his travels.
Yeah.
I mean, Berlaine certainly uses her body like a weapon here. She doesn't actually sleep with a lot of guys. She just uses her...
Yeah, I saw someone saying that a minute ago, that at some point, but that she hasn't actually slept with very many people. She just uses seduction as a weapon.
Basically.
That's the way I always saw her. Not as like she's not like selling herself to make political alliances. She's just enjoying herself and manipulating people.
It kind of reminds me of a recent bio I saw on a female poker player who was like, there are three types of men sitting down at the table. One of the types was basically the ones she could distract with her boobs. And the other ones were like men who refused to lose, so she could always like force them into a corner. And I forget what the third kind was, but it was like...
I think it was like, I think she said something like men that can't see past your tits, men that want to help you, and men that refuse to acknowledge that you're a real player at the table.
Right.
Or something like that.
Right.
I know what you're talking about.
And you play each of them a different way.
Yeah.
Berlaine has at least one of those strategies.
I think probably all.
So back to Fail being like, all right, we're going on a journey. Might as well bring along a Gleeman, because, if we can't get a bard, which I thought was particularly ironic, because he is a bard.
Yeah, she brings that up for a moment, but any talk of that quickly dies off when Perrin has already said, like, I'll be going alone, Fail, just Loyal and me. And she just kind of talks over him and starts making plans. And he says, hey, I said, she's like, yeah, I heard you.
I'm not acknowledging it because you're dumb. Well, and she definitely has the idea that they're going to go there and start a resistance.
Right.
She has no idea that he plans to go there and allow himself to be killed.
As if that would help anything.
Right. And so that's why he treats her so badly here, is he's actually trying to drive her off because he thinks he's going to go be killed, and he doesn't want her to see that and come with him.
Fail's rant is pretty funny, and she just starts yelling about Berlaine and just casually insulting Perrin. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, Berlaine's pretty great. And she storms out, essentially, is what happens.
I like how she says, does it have to be so dark in here? Berlaine likes dim light, does she? It's like walking in on a candlelit room, him with his shirt off.
It's just your boyfriend doesn't need light to see. Yeah. So, right, he purposely says some things that will upset Fail so that she'll leave and not want to come with him, which, of course, is the opposite of what happens.
Do you think she sees through that?
No.
No. She's just pissed.
I think she's just spiteful. I don't know. What do you guys think, people of the internet? Does Fail realize that Perrin said the things that he does in this chapter? Because does Fail realize what Perrin's intent was by saying those? Or is she just...
I mean, she turns around and goes and confronts Berlaine right here in the next scene. We get to see from her POV.
That's true. The first thing she does is try to stab Berlaine.
So he basically tells her, like, yeah, she asked me to come serve. I might do that. Probably better than being with you. It's just... Oof.
Doesn't say that last part.
No.
That's the implication.
Yeah. It's a deep cut. And Fail immediately turns around and runs after Berlaine. Just sort of a weird response. You'd think she'd smack Perrin around a little bit.
They're yelling at each other, and Berlane pretends to misperceive Fail as a serving girl, which is she knows that's not true.
Of course she knows who she is.
Serving girl. First of Mayene, indeed. There are estates in Saldea larger than Mayene.
And she's still keeping it quiet that she is... Does Berlane know that she's the daughter of Bashir at this point?
Nobody does.
Okay.
It's possible someone could have figured it out, but I really doubt it.
I like this line. She had been taught not to draw a knife unless she meant to use it. And I was like, really? Because she draws them all the freaking time and doesn't use them.
Well, she's in a rage. She, because there's a funny, a lot of this is from her perspective, and there's a funny, she knows that she's acting ridiculous, or like a Saldean farm girl, I'm pretty sure is what the line was. But she doesn't stop, and that's what being emotional feels like.
Sure.
You're like, this is stupid. Why can't I just get past this? And then you're ranting about it again. Here's why.
And Berlane is no slouch. I think Fail is not necessarily the best fighter, to be honest.
No.
She's
a princess.
We see Ruark take the knives away from her, no problem, a couple of times.
Well, that's Ruark. Ruark is Batman.
Fair enough. But even I guess.
No, I feel you. But I mean, I don't think Berlane is either. She's just takes Fail off guard.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like
Fail's
just pulling a knife to...
Competent.
She's not actually going to stab her. You're not sure.
I don't know. I wouldn't put good money down on that. I think once you have access to Aes Sedai and healing, the consequences of stabbing somebody lightly are lessened.
Sure. It's just a little stab, no big deal.
I was thinking about Ebu Dar, and they have all the wise women there who can heal, and they also have a lot of knife fights. And I was wondering if the fact that they actually have the knife fights is because the wise women are capable of healing the worst of the wounds.
So the men aren't all dead?
Yeah, basically.
Maybe.
That's the only way you can maintain a fighting culture like that without killing everybody.
That and polygamy. I always liked the idea of marriage knives.
Yeah, I don't really need a girl who's just gonna stab me when I displease her, even if it's a light stab.
Just a light stabbing.
I cut myself yesterday on a knife, and it hurts. And it was a light cut. I don't want it to be, casual cutting. We talk about how weirdly abusive the relationship is between Perrin and Fail occasionally, with the yelling and the confrontational. And
Sure.
Some people would call that a little unhealthy. But we also live in a world where women in Ebu Dar stab their husbands as a mild punishment. And that's little
true.
more abusive than I think some relationships. So, and we have to grade on a curve a little bit. So I have Berlane declaring that she's going to take him away and shave off that beard. Ogier's oath on it.
He is a bit uncultured, she says.
And if I like to talk about Rand's sort of three personalities and how each one dates a girl, Perrin really does have a split personality, which is more human and civilized, and then sort of wild and wolf-like. And Fail sort of appeals to his more wolf-like characteristics, and Berlane to his more civilized.
It's a fun way to interpret it.
He's clearly linked to both women, and Berlane serves him pretty loyally for a while.
Until the end.
Yeah, especially when Fail isn't there. He needs both of them. He needs the Falcon and the Hawk, despite the adversarial relationship between them.
So they're standing in the hallway, confronting each other, because they're not both yelling. I think just Fail is yelling. Suddenly, Ruark was there between them, towering over them, snatching the knives away before either woman was really aware of him. "Have you not seen enough blood already tonight?" he said coldly. "Of all those I thought I might find breaking the peace, the two of you would be the last named." Fail gaped at him. With no warning, she pivoted, driving her fist towards Ruark's short ribs. The toughest man would feel it there. He seemed to move without looking at her, caught her arm, and I'll spare reading the whole thing, but Ogier Tendencies says the cold rocks hold. But he grabs her wrist and does the thing where he's she can't, if she moves, she'll pop her shoulder out of the socket.
Yeah, Ruark doesn't need to dodge. He just casually catches her fists, holds the two girls immobile.
While he's simultaneously chastising Berlane.
I mean, he may be one of the most badass warriors on Ranland, shortly behind Lan.
He sends her to her room.
Yeah.
You will go to your room, and you will not come out until the sun is above the horizon. I will see that no breakfast is brought to you. A little hunger will remind you that there is a time and a place for fighting. She's like, I am a queen. You can't. And he was like, oh, really?
Go to your rooms now. If you do not, we will repeat our first talk together, you and I, right here. I would assume that involved a fair amount of spanking, mostly because of the theme of the book series.
I assumed it was some embarrassing fact about her, or...
No, I think the first time he confronted her, he put her over a knee and spanked her because she was misbehaving.
Where are you getting that from?
You know, I have no idea. That's my headcanon, but it's just sort of like parental discipline that he's provided to her.
Yeah. And he does do the parent countdown.
Yeah.
Berlane is running. He says a little after that, Berlane's punishment for fighting was to have you see her be sent to bed like a willful child. Yours is to lose these knives that you prize. I know you have others. If you argue, I might take those too. I will not have the peace broken. And a little after that he says, some of the Terrans thought they could keep on fighting their duels after I had declared peace on this place. But the smell of the refuse carts soon taught them their mistake. Basically, he makes them shovel shit for several days if they don't listen.
It is an effective punishment.
Yeah.
He's already got 2 wives. He's not interested in Berlane romantically in the slightest. He sees her as a impudent, almost maybe a roof mistress who's not doing her duty. And so that's what I was thinking, is that perhaps he sees her duty to maintain the hold because Rand put her in charge and she wasn't doing her, she wasn't following Jito, and he sort of had to talk to her about how to fulfill her role. I'm speculating.
I don't remember what she was punished for the first time or what the talking to was about. Ogier Tendencies is asking why Ruark's clan might have been selected to hunt for the dragon, and do you think they were viewed as better able to cope with Wetlander nonsense, in quotes?
Oh, I mean, they sent a whole bunch of different people from different clans over the Dragon Wall.
And I think Ruark specifically because...
his wife is a Dreamwalker.
And I think we came to our head-canoned conclusion that's maybe not provable, that the wise ones know that he has to go.
Sure, the offhand remark, you don't want to die old in bed, do you?
Yeah, but he is also just an accomplished clan chief, and you would want someone like that to go.
Sure, but they went over the Dragon Wall as societies, not as clans. And that's why it was this peace that they were able to have Shido and a whole bunch of other different groups, and they stayed together as societies. So you had the Stone Dogs, and you had that sort of the
warrior societies.
Yeah, the warrior societies, and those overlap between clans. They're like fraternities at different colleges.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was once they get back to the Waste, they start operating in clans again, and that's when a lot of the issues start to crop up, because then you have the Shido as a separate entity.
Yeah, after Ruidian.
Because they pretty much use the Portal Stone, and within minutes Rand's off running, or off to the city, and then he's gone for a week, and when he gets back, he has the dragon tattoos. And then there's sort of the travel across the desert, and then Couladin reveals he's got the tattoos, and there's a whole... And then there's the race to the bull. Well, there's the race to the bull first. And anyway, I'm rambling. Anything else about this chapter do you want to say?
I'll do the readout. She wondered if she could bait Berlon into something, just to see the first of Mayene sweating among the refuse carts. But Ruark had said both of them. Her father meant what he said, too. Berlane. Something Berlane had said was tickling the back of her mind. Ogier's oath. That was it. And Ogier never broke an oath. To say Ogier Oathbreaker was like saying brave coward or wise fool. She could not help laughing out loud. You will take him from me, you silly peahen? By the time you see him again, if you ever do, he'll be mine once more. Chuckling to herself, and occasionally rubbing her shoulder, she walked on with a light heart.
It's almost evil. He
Claws
will be
out.
mine.
Jeez. reigning over him like an object.
She always said she'd never do that, and then she does it. Min has the same thought a lot. I never thought I'd be a fool for a man, and yet that damn Randolph Thor got me into this situation.
Romance happens to the best of us.
I love the line after Fail gets rescued, and there's the whole rumor that Perrin slept with Berelain, and Fael's like, I know you didn't sleep with her. It took me more than a year and a marriage to seduce you. There's no way she did it in one night. Which is another one of those comments that makes me think that they're not actually having sex at this point.
Jeez.
Despite the fact that my headcanon is that they are.
I know he's kind of was. Don't they share a tent?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely sleeping in the physical, like, actual sleeping together in the same bed. But they don't seem to be having sex until they get married.
That's amazing. I don't know how you...
Don't think,
yeah.
I could do that. It's not.
I don't understand how this is done.
With a heavy dose of guilt.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?